Have you ever felt like time is just a little bit off? Like maybe the calendar on your wall isn't telling you the whole story? Well, what if I told you that a German historian named Heribert Illig proposed a theory that the year isn't what we think it is? He claimed that nearly 300 years of history, from 614 to 911 AD, never actually happened. This is the phantom time hypothesis, a mind-bending idea suggesting that our calendar was deliberately pushed forward. It sounds like something straight out of a science fiction novel, doesn't it? According to Illig, this massive historical fraud was orchestrated by a powerful trio. He pointed his finger at the Holy Roman Emperor Otto III, Pope Sylvester II, and possibly the Byzantine Emperor Constantine VII. But why would they do something so drastic? What could possibly motivate them to erase 3 centuries from human history? The alleged motive was surprisingly simple: a desire for power and prestige. Illig proposed that Otto III wanted to rule during the significant year of 1000 AD. By inventing a few hundred years, he could place himself right at the turn of the millennium, a time of great symbolic importance. It was a power move, a way to cement his legacy in a very special year. This theory, first published in 1991, sent ripples through historical communities. It challenged the very foundation of our understanding of the early Middle Ages. If Illig was right, it would mean that figures like Charlemagne, a towering emperor of the Franks, might have been nothing more than a historical fiction, a character invented to fill the phantom years. The entire Carolingian dynasty and its achievements would be called into question. The evidence Illig presented was as intriguing as the theory itself. He focused on what he saw as major discrepancies and gaps in the historical record. He argued that the period between 614 and 911 AD was suspiciously quiet. He claimed there was a lack of significant archaeological evidence and a scarcity of written historical sources compared to the periods before and after. This supposed lull in historical activity was one of the central pillars of his argument. It was, in his view, the smoking gun that proved these years were fabricated. Illig also pointed to the Gregorian calendar reform of 1582 as a piece of his puzzle. When Pope Gregory XIII introduced the new calendar, he had to correct a drift that had accumulated over centuries. The Julian calendar, used before the Gregorian reform, was slightly too long, causing a discrepancy with the solar year. By 1582, the calendar was off by about 10 days. Illig did the math. He calculated that the Julian calendar should have been off by about 13 days by that point, not 10. He concluded that the missing 3 days of drift corresponded to 300 years that never existed. This calendar discrepancy became one of his most cited pieces of proof. It seemed like a neat mathematical solution to a historical mystery. Another fascinating piece of his argument involved architectural history. Illig examined the Palatine Chapel in Aachen, Germany, a building from the time of Charlemagne. He claimed that its Romanesque architectural style was far too advanced for the 8th century. He suggested it was more consistent with buildings from 2 or 3 centuries later. This, he argued, was clear evidence that the chapel, and by extension Charlemagne himself, were anachronisms. They were placed in the wrong time period. The theory is certainly captivating. It makes you question everything you learned in history class. But when historians and scientists started to dig into Illig's claims, the entire hypothesis began to fall apart. The evidence against the phantom time hypothesis is, in fact, overwhelming. Let's start with astronomy, a field that provides an incorruptible celestial clock. Ancient astronomers across the world, from Europe to the Middle East and China, kept detailed records of celestial events. We have records of solar eclipses from the supposed phantom time. For example, the Byzantine Empire recorded a solar eclipse in the year 763 AD. Chinese astronomers during the Tang Dynasty also meticulously documented a solar eclipse in 899 AD. These events can be verified with modern astronomical calculations. If those 297 years were invented, these astronomical records would be completely out of sync. The eclipses would have been observed at times and places where they couldn't possibly have happened. But they match up perfectly. The sky doesn't lie. The consistent and verifiable records of astronomical events from different, unconnected cultures provide a powerful and independent rebuttal to the theory. Then there is the mountain of archaeological evidence that Illig claimed was missing. Archaeologists have, in fact, unearthed countless artifacts and sites from the period of 614 to 911 AD. We have extensive evidence of Viking settlements, raids, and trade routes that fall squarely within this time frame. Excavations have revealed ship burials, hordes of coins, and entire villages from this era. In England, archaeologists have studied the development of Anglo-Saxon kingdoms, with distinct pottery styles, burial practices, and settlement patterns that evolve steadily through these phantom centuries. There is no sudden gap or jump in the material record. These findings show a continuous and complex history, not a void. The idea that there's a lack of archaeological evidence is simply not supported by the facts on the ground. What about Illich's calendar argument? His calculation about the Gregorian reform was flawed. He failed to account for the fact that the Council of Nicaea in 325 AD, which established the formula for the date of Easter, based its calculations on the astronomical state of the sky at that time, not at the time of the Julian calendar's introduction by Julius Caesar. When Pope Gregory corrected the calendar, his goal was to bring the spring equinox back to where it was during the Council of Nicaea, not the time of Caesar. Historians and astronomers have shown that the 10-day correction was indeed the correct number for the period. Between 325 AD and 1582, there are no missing days to account for. So, the calendar proof turns out to be based on a misunderstanding of historical and astronomical context. It's a classic case of seeing a pattern where none exists, and the architectural claims don't hold up either. Art and architectural historians have thoroughly documented the evolution of building techniques. The Palatine Chapel in Aachen is considered a masterpiece of Carolingian architecture, a precursor to the Romanesque style, not a building that is out of place. It shows a clear influence from earlier Roman and Byzantine styles, which is exactly what one would expect from that period. There is a clear, traceable evolution from late Roman architecture through Carolingian and into the later Romanesque and Gothic periods. There is no sudden, unexplainable appearance of an advanced style. Furthermore, the phantom time hypothesis completely ignores the history of the world outside of Western Europe. The Tang dynasty in China, for example, flourished from 618 to 907 AD, almost perfectly aligning with the supposed phantom period. This was a golden age of Chinese culture, with detailed historical chronicles, extensive poetry, and countless administrative records. The Islamic Golden Age was also in full swing during this time. Thinkers like Al-Khwarizmi, the father of algebra, lived and worked in the 9th century. To believe in the phantom time hypothesis, you would have to believe in a global conspiracy of incredible complexity, involving civilizations that had little to no contact with each other. It would mean that emperors in China and caliphs in Baghdad were all in on a plot to help a German emperor who wouldn't be born for another 100 years. The sheer scale and absurdity of such a conspiracy make it impossible to entertain seriously. The number of written sources from the period is also far greater than Illig suggested. While the early Middle Ages might not have the same volume of paperwork as later periods, we are far from having a void. We have the Chronicles of Bede in England, the histories of the Frankish kingdoms, and extensive legal and administrative documents from across Europe. We have countless letters, poems, and theological texts. These documents corroborate each other and paint a detailed picture of a vibrant and developing society. To dismiss them all as forgeries is an extraordinary claim that requires extraordinary evidence, which Illig failed to provide. So, why does a debunked theory like this persist? Part of the appeal lies in its grand, conspiratorial nature. It's a story that makes us feel like we're in on a secret that has been hidden from the masses. It challenges authority and offers a simple, if incorrect, solution to a complex historical period. It's a compelling narrative, but it's not a historical fact. History is a messy, complicated, and fascinating puzzle. It's built piece by piece from different sources: written texts, archaeological finds, scientific data, and oral traditions. While it's good to be skeptical and ask questions, it's also important to follow the evidence. In the case of the phantom time hypothesis, the evidence is clear and overwhelming. The years between 614 and 911 AD were real. They were filled with real people, real events, and real developments that shaped the world we live in today. Charlemagne was a real emperor, the Vikings did sail the seas, and the Tang dynasty did create incredible art and innovations. Our calendar is correct, and those 300 years of history are safe. Thank you for joining us to explore this fascinating historical puzzle. To watch more deep dives into the mysteries of our past, be sure to subscribe to Documentary Reel.